This video will review invoices and payments in the Planning Pod system. From your home screen dashboard, we're going to access the main invoice area through the main navigation menu on the left. Once we land on the invoice dashboard, there are a number of ways that you can sort and filter information that you're looking at here. The first thing you'll see is the associated events on the lower left-hand side of your screen. This allows you to click and view what invoices are associated with a particular event. Above that, you'll see your quick views. The default is going to be to show active invoices, but you can view all active, archived, invoiced, due, payments, and reminders. At the top of your screen, you'll see key metrics so that you can track where you're at within your invoicing year and check your financials on a daily basis. You can change the time frame on any of these: total, balances, payments, and scheduled payments that are upcoming. The first way that you can add a new invoice is to simply click your Add Invoice option. From this screen, you'll actually start from the beginning and begin adding an invoice from scratch. We're going to choose our client, select their address. You can either continue with the invoice number it's assigned, or you can assign it an invoice number, and you'll want to go ahead and name your invoice. Once we enter the invoice date, and that's the date you're creating it, not the date that it's due, you'll want to add the final payment due date. Note that if you accept installment payments, you don't want to put the date of the deposit, but the actual final payment date. And then if you have a purchase order number, you can enter that as well. Now we're actually in the invoice. You'll note that the information we filled out when creating this has already been populated into this page. If this needs to be connected with an existing event, you can link it to the event here by simply clicking on the link button, choosing the event it's associated with, and then clicking Save. Now we're ready to go ahead and start adding line items to our invoice so that we can charge our clients. We're going to click Add Line Item, and that's going to bring up this box for us to complete a form. We'll choose the item name, and you'll notice that under the quantity and hours, you can do a manual entry or use different head counts based on the event that this invoice is attached to. If it's something that is a base price, so for example, a planning package is $4,000 for the package, you can use manual entry. Other items like catering, bar service, things that are based on hourly rates or on the head count, you can choose one of the other options for how to enter that. On the description area is where you can actually write out what's included in this individual line item so that there are no questions on the part of the client. For additional items, you can click Save and Add Another, or if you're finished adding line items, you can choose Save and Close. Let's go ahead and add a couple more items to this invoice just for an example. Let's go ahead and add a catering package based on the estimated head count. Note that it automatically pulled in that 350 person head count from the event. We can enter our unit cost and a markup or a discount if necessary. You can also choose to add tax if it applies to the item that you're adding. The taxes are based on the individual line item in this case. Again, we'll enter in a description, and then we can save and close or save and add another. Click on the small photo icon to the left of each line item in order to upload an image to represent that line item. You can also add line items by importing line item templates that you've created under the templates area. Just click on the Import Export, import line item templates as new line items, and then you can select the items from your templates area. In this case, we'll just choose this example package A to show you how it works. You'll see that it imported the line item with pricing, unit cost, tax, markup, discount, a photo if you have one, everything that you need to very quickly add information. Click Add Line Item Category to add existing line item categories or to create new categories to go on your invoices. If you are creating a new category for your invoice, it will give you the option to automatically add it to all future proposals and invoices. This saves you a little bit of time when you're creating new invoices. Now that you've added categories, you can use the checkboxes to the left to add items into those categories, add markups or discounts to those items, or to add tax to those items. You can do this one at a time, or you can do this in bulk using the checkboxes. Once you have your items added to categories, you can add additional fees for service charges, gratuities, and other items. You can choose those to be a fixed fee or percentage of the total for that individual category, set if it's taxable or not, and save that. This is great for if you have specific fees associated with a category like catering or food and beverage, or if you want to add a gratuity for a planner. Now, there's a separate option for adding a fee to the total invoice. And we see this often with things like production fees, or if there is an overall gratuity for the event. At the bottom of the invoice, you'll see the option to add a message. You can put a thank you note here, you can put your payment terms, or anything else that's applicable to this particular invoice. Below the message, you have an image gallery where you can upload images and provide captions to really provide a data-rich experience for your clients. You can also upload and attach files to the invoice from your computer and tag an invoice for reporting purposes. You can track cash or check deposits that are intended to be returned to a client using the Track Deposit button at the top of the line items. Simply fill out the form, add the deposit amount, any notes that you need about that deposit, and click Save when you're finished. Note that this is not for credit card deposits that will be returned via our credit card processors, as that is a violation of their terms and conditions. Once the event is over, you can refund this in the system, either in part or in full, and the information on this deposit will show up on the payment receipts and the invoice. Now that we're all set up, let's talk about collecting payments on your invoices. You can collect payments in installments or all at once. Using payment reminders, you can set up multiple installments or single installment payments based on your needs and the needs that you've discussed with your client. You'll simply click to add a payment reminder, choose how many reminders you'd like to add, give each a title, and choose how much is due. If you're using a preferred payment processor through PlanningPod, you can add a Pay Now button as well, so when they receive that email, they can quickly make a payment online that will be applied to your invoice. Choose the date and the time that you'd like the reminder to send, as well as the due date for this individual payment, and you're ready to go. Now, if I wanted to add additional installments and add multiple installments over the next several months, I can choose to do that as well. I'm going to choose how many reminders, how many days apart I want those to send. I'll need to name each one of these reminders, add a Pay Now button if I choose to do so, choose the amount due for each of these payments, choose the first payment due date, and then choose when I want that first email reminder to send from the system. This allows us to collect a set amount on certain days and not have to remember to go back in and individually add or call or send an email manually from the system. If the client listed on this invoice has access to the client portal, they will see these reminders in the portal, as well as be able to click directly on the reminder to make a payment anytime they'd like, even if they haven't received the reminder in the email yet. You can mark these reminders as paid in the system, even if they are paid outside of PlanningPod with a different processor or by check or cash. You'll note that once we've marked those as paid, it will show that payment at the top, the invoice total, and the balance due. Using AutoPay will require that a contact has a saved payment method. Let's go ahead and add a payment method for Mr. John Appleseed. Under his contact, we're going to go to the payment methods and click the plus sign. Then it's just as simple as adding in credit card information and clicking Save. Since card information is actually stored under the preferred processor that you have active in PlanningPod, you won't be able to save card information if you're not using one of our processors. Let's head back over to our open invoice and set up an auto payment schedule. We'll simply click on the plus sign to the right of the auto payment and walk through the steps to set this up. Choose the card on file, choose the number of payments. You'll choose how many days apart you'd like those payments to be, the first payment date, and the amount of each payment, and click Save. These payments will automatically attempt to process on the dates that you associated with them, and then no one has to worry about when the payments are due or manually making those payments. As long as the card is good and can be processed, you're good to go. To add a one-time payment or to track a payment made outside of the PlanningPod system, use the Add Payment button at the top of your screen. You can manually add a payment for cash, checks, or a credit card transaction processed outside of PlanningPod by using the Manually Add Payment. Enter in a reference, this will show in the reporting, and click Save. That payment will be applied both at the top of the invoice and at the bottom. To process a payment using a preferred payment processor through Planning Pod, you'll simply click on the Process Payment, choose the payment amount, and continue to adding the payment. If the client has a saved credit card, you can use that, or you can simply enter a new credit card if you're using a different card for this transaction. Once we refresh this page, you'll see that that has also been updated at the top of the screen, and all the way here at the bottom, you'll see all of the payments that have been processed thus far. To send the invoice to a client via email, use the email button at the top of the form. You can choose to add a Pay Now button if they're going to be paying the full balance of the invoice. You can also download an invoice PDF from the system, which includes all of the details that you see on the invoice to either save on your records or provide to a client. Notice that this invoice does include everything that you see on the internal invoice, including payments that have been made. You can also click to download a sales receipt PDF, again for your records or to share with a client, that includes the basic details of payments that have been made and balances. You can delete the invoice using the delete button. You will have to confirm, or you can archive the invoice. Invoices can also be accessed, created, and edited from an event. Just go ahead and open the event and you'll see the Invoices tool on your event dashboard. To the right of the Invoices heading, you'll see if any key activities have happened, in this case the 3 payments that we've applied. Click on Invoices and choose the invoice that you want to view or edit to start working in the invoice within an event. Everything functions here exactly as it did in our Invoices tool. Use the Show/Hide button at the top of your line items to customize the look of your invoices by showing or hiding columns. There's an on-screen and an output option, and they can be the same or different. You can click Go to Proposal/Invoice Display Settings to customize these as a default on all of your invoices. Let's take a look at how templates can make your invoicing process even easier. Start by selecting Templates from the main navigation menu on the left, and you'll see there are 2 different types of templates associated with invoices under the Business and Legal templates. Let's start with the full invoice template. You'll notice that we have lumped together invoices and proposals because you can take an existing proposal and convert it into an invoice. So if you are walking through the process in that way, you'll want to go ahead and start with a proposal. For our example today though, let's go ahead and open an invoice template. Once you're in an invoice, the process of editing and adding line items is exactly the same as we looked at in the invoice within an event. Back in the templates area, let's take a look at proposal and invoice line item templates. These are exactly as they sound, an individual line item that's maybe a one-off or a package that you might add to an invoice or a proposal. In this example, we'll go ahead and choose valet services. We'll choose manual entry, and maybe we'll put in 2 hours. We'll enter in the unit cost, any markups or discounts, whether it's taxable, and a description to go along with this. Once you've completed all the details in this form, you can click Save, and it will be available to use for both invoices and proposals when you're building those items in the main system. Once your templates are created, click on Invoices, Import/Export, Import Template as New Invoice, and choose the template that you'd like to use. You can also select an event to apply that template to if you wish. Once you've done this, it will bring you in and you'll be ready to start editing. Note that since we didn't start this from an event or from scratch, we are going to have to enter a little information like the client name, the address that we want to use that's associated with their contact, the invoice date, which would likely be today, and the final payment due date for them. Again, that's the final date, not the date a deposit or an installment payment is due. From there, you know just what to do. Go through, add your line items, edit your line items, and you'll be ready to collect payment. Before we wrap up here, let's take a look at the account settings associated with invoices. Click on your name and then Settings, and you'll find the settings we're going to talk about under the Financial area. You should have already set up your currency symbol when you set up your account, but you can change it if you need to. The next thing we'll look at is the Tax Rates Manager. You can choose to change the settings to include or not include markups and discounts when calculating taxes, and you can add additional tax rates or custom tax rates. This is great if you have different tax rates based on the products or services that you are selling in your area. The proposal and invoice display we've already looked at coming from an invoice, but this is where you'd locate it under the settings. The next thing would be the proposal and invoice categories. You saw us edit these within an invoice, but you can actually come in here and set them as default to show up on every new invoice that you create. It's a great time saver if you're using consistent categories from invoice to invoice. Last would be the additional fees setup, where you can change what the fees are called and change the type of fee. So if it's a percentage of the total, or if it is a flat rate fee, you can also set to include markups and discounts or not. Thanks for joining me for this Invoices overview. With additional questions, please reach out to support@planningpod.com or use our live chat feature. Thanks again and have a great day.